right, share the live with the people. Tonight we're talking about joy as a political strategy. If you hear music, it's because it's the intro that's happening on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So like the screen, tap the screen, get part of the screen. You can interact with this. So tap the screen, keep tapping the screen, share the live with other people. We're gonna have a conversation. Joy is a political strategy. We have about 1 minute. Tap the live. There you go. Tap the live. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. Share it with more folks. The more likes, the more engagement. Really need to start engaged with this conversation. So as you keep moving forward, you tap so the algorithm picks up, and when it picks up, people will be able to tap the screen. Tap the screen. Keep tapping the screen. Tap the screen. Tap the screen. So we can tap the screen. It's not just because it is a strategy for political talk, especially polling stuff that has happened in the past month. Is crazy. All right, y'all, it is 7 o'clock. So we are going to start and have this good conversation tonight. My name is Dr. Relia Johnson. I am your favorite sociologist, the identity professor, the people's professor. I am a equity specialist. I am, a social justice practitioner. I am an anti-racist, right? Social justice practitioner that centers Black joy, Black bodies, Black people, and women. And so I come from a very learned perspective. So I'm, trained sociologist, went to Texas Southern University, shout out TSU, went to Howard University, shout out Howard University. And so tonight we're going to talk about joy. So I know that you all have seen what has happened in society in America in the last month. I think this has probably been the longest January that we have ever experienced in our lives. Like I was having a conversation with a colleague, and it was just January 12th. We was like, it is only 12 days in, and we still like have the rest of the month to go. So now on January 28th, we with 3 days left in the year. We're 3 days, feels like 3 days left in the year. With 3 days left in the month, there are so many things that have happened to us that are happening around us that I thought it would be very important to have this conversation about joy. So the first thing that I want to talk about is like I was having these conversations. This is gonna be very conversational. So if you don't have like tonight, I'm more casual today. I usually, I'm gonna dress this lip, honey. I'm gonna dress this lip down, okay? But I'm more casual and comfortable today because I really wanted to have a living room conversation with, right? I didn't want this to be pretentious, to be my mommy. Hi, mommy. I didn't want this to be pretentious. I didn't want this to be condescending. I want this conversation to be something that people can interact with. And the more you tap that screen, the more people will see, the more the algorithm will pick up on this conversation, and the more people will be able to participate in the conversation. So tap the screen, keep tapping the screen, so then people the live will pop up on their feed. So in the last month, we have seen a number of things happen, which really prompted me to have a conversation with some women that are in my network. And so I do work that is local, and then I do work that's across the country. And so I was having this conversation with some sister friends of mine who are living in the country, who are living across the country, who live in the same city that I do. And one of the things I was really trying to interrogate was, why was I feeling the way that I was feeling? Why was I in this space of just blah? Like I just didn't feel right. I just felt stuck. I felt like I couldn't think clearly. I'm not thinking as creatively. I'm not, able to see past what is happening in front of me. And the sister who was also my soror, she came up with this. She taught me this phrasing. which is called situational depression. And so she was like, as a collective, what we may be experiencing is this situational depression where you're not depressed, but you're not sad, but you're not happy, you're not in this place of thinking. There's a difficulty in being able to wade through what is going on in the world around you. And so I was just like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. And the crux of it is because so much is coming at us, we have seen in real time, what I have seen in real time this month alone is at least four people be murdered, right? For the world to experience, for the world to witness, right? And we have seen children be accosted, and we have seen parents separated from their children. We have been in this influx of doom and gloom and chaos, and like it's just been a bunch of stuff that has been coming at us at one time. And so now I was like, well, what do we do about this? And so, I am a person who has studied, liberation movements, especially those that are in the United States, right? So whether it was the Black Power movement, it was the civil rights movement, women's liberation movement, like first wave, second wave feminism, whether it was the LGBTQ movement, whether it was Black Lives Matter. And in studying those things, I was thinking about what kind of strategies could we be putting in place to help us navigate the current situation that we find ourselves in. Like I am, an 80s baby, right? And I am finding it really difficult to understand like we how do we respond in a way that is innovative. Um and like in that response, like, what what can be done, to what extent, how do you have real conversations with people so they are productive and they are interrogating what is currently happening around us? Are we asking the right questions? Are we asking the right questions of ourselves? Are we asking the right questions of people around us? Like, what does that mean? Hey, Renita, what's up? Hey, Wayne. Like, what does that really mean when we are just in this constant state of shock and awe, right? And I have some analyses on the responses of the unalivings of people that have happened, because the response that Keith, I believe his name is Keith Porter, he received is not the same response that Renee Good received, which is not the same response that Alex Preddy received, right? So that's a whole other conversation about how are we responding to the unalivings of American citizens, and why are those responses different, right? But then it gets me back to this question of like, how do we navigate this constant shock and awe, this constant feeling of being disassociated, being in constant influx, being thrown about? Like, there is no consistency outside of craziness, right? There is um, no stability. There is no equilibrium. There is no um, soft place for us to land at this point, because every day it is and has been something different. And this is not just singular to January 2026. This is now, we have been going through this, since January 20th, 2025, right? So I want to talk to us about joy. So joy is defined, and that was just a pretext, right? Of just kind of giving the framing of where this conversation is coming from. So joy is the feeling of great pleasure and happiness, or it is a thing that causes great pleasure and happiness. Joy is internal. It is something that is subjective. It is something that we have the ability to define and create and attain for ourselves. However, what we have been told, or what the narrative has been about joy, is that it's external. It is something that you get from something outside of yourself. It is something you get from being in a relationship. It is something that you get from being in community. It is something that you get from buying a new pair of shoes. It is something that you get from eating food from your favorite restaurant or your not so favorite restaurant. Like joy has been sold to us as if it is something complete and separate and outside of ourselves. And the only way that you can attain joy, the only way that you can experience joy is by doing something outside of you. And this conversation is about how do we recognize joy as this singular individual act? How do we situate joy as a strategy to navigate the social, political, economic climate that we are now in, right? So joy is, I mean, I got notes, y'all. Um, Joy is antithetical to what we are currently experiencing. So for those that are in the social justice, equity practitioner, public sector space, those that do work in community, those that partner with community, what is going on? What is happening? So somebody wants to co-host with me. Why? Is that one of those challenge things? Whatever. It doesn't matter. Right. So joy is extremely important, right? When you think about people who are anti-racist, social justice practitioners, these are people who go into these spaces with a goal of and a passion of making some type of difference in people's lives, right? Like people don't go into this work because they're gonna make a whole bunch of money. People go into this work because they really want to make a difference. And when we're in this space of trying to make a difference, we take on a lot. We internalize a lot of the things that are happening around us when we ourselves are not individually responsible for what is happening around us, right? And so we then have to interrogate what I'm calling this martyrdom complex. So I've been able to talk to sisters and brothers who have been doing this work, especially those who've been doing this work for decades. And people who have been doing this work for decades, one of the things that they're coming to a conclusion about is like, I have made these sacrifices. I have moved, been away from my family. I've been away from my children. I've been away from my friends. There were other things that I could have been doing with my life, but I dedicated myself to this movement, to this passion work, to progress, to reform. And now here I am 15, 20, 25, 30 years later, and I am, my children are not grown, they don't need me. My spouse has either left me or, has died or whatever. And now they're looking and really like looking back and assessing what was the point of the kind of sacrifice. Like, so this martyrdom complex is, when you feel like you have to sacrifice yourself to something specifically, when you have to give up something in order to have an impact on the world, when you have to give up yourself, right, to have this impact on the world. And I don't think that in activism work and government work and child welfare work and social justice work, absolutely one for the many, in the work that you have to be miserable to be successful. That is, I don't think that that's true. I think that some people would argue with me and be like, oh, or would present the argument that progress and movement work is really about sacrifice. And I think to a certain extent it is, but it is hard to continuously pour out of yourself if you're never refilled, right? It is hard to think creatively and strategically, and ensue any type of innovation if you have not had the opportunity to experience some type of joy for yourself, right? So the strategy really is about joy is a deliberate tactic used to disrupt control and restore agency. There was a conversation that was taking place about Vice President Harris's laugh while she was during that 107 days of her campaign. And there was this whole critique about her laugh. It's annoying. People didn't like it. Why does she laugh? And the question really wasn't about whether or not she was laughing. It was really about how frivolity was being situated in juxtaposition to someone who was extremely serious in the country, right? How this frivolity was being juxtaposed with the bid or the run for president of the United States, as if presidents are not humans and they don't have the right to laugh, right? And so we have to be thinking about what are the deliberate tactics and strategies that are being used against people, especially people of color, when they find themselves in these spaces of creating joy, right? So like for example, there was a whole conversation about about black folks and line dancing, and that was a problem. There was a whole conversation about, you know, how black people are now taking a moment to rest, right? And so that is being juxtaposed with this whole narrative about black folks being lazy, which is completely untrue, right? Because where is Comrade Kamala? Why would you use the word comrade? So right there, that's a dog whistle. I don't play those kind of I don't play those kind of games, right? She's not a socialist. She's not a communist. That is a dog whistle, and we don't play those kind of games. So you get to come my live playing with me. Don't do that. So back to like how we juxtapose these narratives about people, right? We have this narrative that black folks are listless, that they're lazy, that they're mischievous, they're, you know, infantile imbeciles who only want to, you know, participate in the pleasures of life. And because that has been the narrative, now we have this thing called respectability politics, and people are now trying to mirror what they believe is the status quo, um, which has nothing to do with how they show up in the world, right? That's a control tactic. MAGA never won. Good for you, sweetheart. I hope that's working out for you. That's good for you. But again, I would be very careful with playing with me. And because of how the platforms that I'm on, I would be very careful in the kind of response that you're trying to solicit from me. So you better get your ass out of here with that foolishness. I do not play those kind of games. Do you understand? Go play with your mama. Don't play with me. Go and find you something safe to do. How about that? Go play in the streets. Do that. Don't play with me, right? So if that's, you can have whatever political orientation you would like to have, that's cool. But here in this space, which we are very inclusive, right? And we understand that people have the right to orient themselves in any which way that they want to orient themselves. But what you will not do is come here and be disruptive to a place where in this space, especially about this particular conversation. So that right there lets me know that you believe that joy is only for a certain population. You let me know that you are a joy killer. That's what you're letting me know, right? That is exactly what you're telling me, and that is why this tactic has to be strategic. It has to be aligned. That's why joy needs to be the tactic and a strategy that we are employing in our lives right now, because of foolishness like that. People will try to rob you of your autonomy. They will try to rob you of your agency. They will try to rob you of your pleasure, as if pleasure and laughter and joy and experience and harmony and beauty and creativity are only for a certain group of people, and everybody else in the world should be subjugated under the oppressive tyranny that is being put in place by people who feel like some are humans and some are not. So we're beyond that conversation. So I hope you have exited. Thank you so much. So when I'm thinking about joy, especially in this space of like anti-racist work, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Thank you so much for the likes. How do we actually like talk about the politics of exhaustion? right? That's a hard thing because again, this last 365 plus days, there has been an intention, especially for Black women in this country, to take a step back and to recognize that they are exhausted. It has been an intentional reckoning with rest is okay, and that rest actually is a form of resistance. Rest is a tactic, it is a strategy that needs to be employed by people who have been constantly on the go. Like rest is something that needs to be uplifted, right? Like rest brings joy. I don't know about y'all, baby, but I like to take a nap. Naps make me happy. There's a whole thing called the nap ministry because you had to get people to to understand like it is okay to take a nap. That doesn't mean that you're not dedicated because you decided to rest. You had to center yourself. Right? That's another conflict, about this martyrdom complex. You centering yourself is not selfish. That's not selfish. Right? We don't want to have that conversation. Right? Centering yourself is not selfish. If you don't pour into you, if you're not rested, if you're not reinvigorated, if you're not clear about your direction, how can you be helpful to anybody else? You can't. You cannot. It doesn't work. As a person who is experiencing burnout right now, the exhaustion of everything that is happening around me, that is happening to people that I care about, that are happening to community, that is happening right in our face, the things that we're seeing on social media, the things that we're seeing on the news, this constant bombardment of chaos and confusion, shock and awe, right? I am burnt out. And I have never in my life felt like I had the autonomy or the agency to say, I am tired. Until we can say that with our chest, our full chest, right? We can never have an honest conversation about what joy is and what it means. And I'm not talking about frivolity, right? So some people would be like, oh, they would try to have this conversation about joy as frivolousness, right? You're just wasting time. You're not being productive. You just want to, feed your id, right? You're just trying to self-soothe. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you actually pouring into yourself and giving yourself the opportunity to rest your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit. So then you can clear up some space so you can see what is in front of you. Like the economy right now. I don't know. Have y'all been to the grocery store lately? I went to the grocery. I love popcorn. I went to the grocery store to buy a box of pop. This is not some gourmet popcorn. Okay, we talking about Kroger brand kettle corn. It was $8.19 for popcorn. That is that right. That is enough stress, right? You are trying to navigate how you're going to pay your bills, how are you going to buy food, how are you going to show up, how are you going to get to work every day. There are folks that are really trying to figure out how they are really working just to get to work. Like they are working to pay for transportation. It is all anti-joy. All of these things are anti-joy. The thing that I've learned about liberation movements, when I was talking earlier about looking at all of these liberation movements that have happened in the American context, what I saw, or what the similarity of all of them were, was innovation. There was a creativity. When I think about the civil rights movement and then the inclusion of the SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, right? Working with the SCOC, the Southern Christian Leadership Committee. I think that's what SCOC stands for. I can't think about it right now. And there was a questioning of King's motives and like his thought process when he wanted to include kids or youth in the movement. People thought he was crazy. But King was innovative in that because he was like, if we can show that our children are being attacked, that children are being assaulted with water hoses and dogs, then that would show a different kind of image to the world, and that makes it hard for people to argue about what is happening to Black people in this country. Like, people argued against King because, and they were not happy with him when he decided to, make this kind of decision, or when he brought up that idea. But in that same vein, I'm thinking about Marsha P. Johnson. I'm thinking about, Sylvia Rivera. I'm thinking about, um, Sojourner Truth. I'm thinking about Huey Newton and H. Rap Brown and Fred Hampton and Erica Brown and Eldridge Cleaver and Kathleen Cleaver. I'm thinking about Angela Davis. I'm thinking about Amira Baraka, formerly Leroy Jones. Like, what were the strategies? What was the innovation? How did they come up with those things? And then once they came up with those things, like, how were they able to center joy to sustain them while they're doing this extremely hard work? It was in the creativity. There was so much music and dance and fashion and food and literature that came out of those resistance movements, because they had to have some place for all of that energy to go. Where is that energy going right now? How are we refueling ourselves? How are we fueling the people around us? How are we finding moments that says, you know what, I'm going to turn this television off and I'm going to take a moment to really dismantle the chaos around me, and I'm going to center and find joy? How are we doing that? Is it line dancing? Is it laughing out loud? Is it taking a moment to just really enjoy a shower? Instead of, like, getting up in the morning, you got 15 minutes to get out of the house, you take this quick shower, you brush your teeth, you do your hair, put your clothes on, you get in the car, and then you off to the day, and then you're gone 9, 10, 11, 12 hours? Is it really taking a moment to just sit in the tub and take a bubble bath? Is it lighting candles? Is it your favorite incense? Is it taking time to read a book? Is it calling a friend and just having a good kiki with that friend, and you're absolutely talking about nothing but things that make you happy? Hi, Maria, tell me how school's going. Is that what it is? What is your tactic? What is your strategy? How are you going to use joy in this moment to sustain yourself? We got what? 11 months to the midterms. How are we going to use joy to sustain ourselves? How are we going to situate joy as a tactic and a strategy? What are you going to do to make sure that you're able to dismantle the shock and awe, the chaos? How are you going to navigate exhaustion? Are you taking the opportunity and the time to really say, I am tired, I'm burnt out, I need a nap. I need a break. You know what? I think I want to go to my favorite restaurant, and I would like my friend or my mom or my dad or whoever to accompany me, and I just want to sit and be. Does that bring you joy? And being okay with being. How do we now dismantle the shock and awe, the chaos, and really recognize what we are feeling? This collective situational depression. There is like this collective consciousness that is happening with us. Things are going well. Thank you. You're very welcome. Mindfulness is very important. How are we interrogating what is happening around us? How are we dismantling the chaos, the shock, the awe? How are we centering self-care? Are we having real conversations about the burnout, the exhaustion? Have you taken a moment to cry. I know I haven't. I tell you, I'm too bad. When I tell you I've been fighting tears, I've been fighting tears because it's you showing up to work and dealing with that. It's you having to swallow, bite your tongue. It's that. It's you having to navigate your life if you are a single individual. It's that. It's you having to navigate aging parents. There's that. It's you having to navigate having children, raising children, transitioning your children out of the house. There's that. Like there's real life going on in addition to all of the craziness that we're witnessing. Have you had taken a moment to really assess the situation and then say, you know what, not today? The stress, the strain, the exhaustion, the pulling and the tugging on my soul and on my spirit. I am going to do something different today. I'm actually going to center joy. This is my strategy for navigating this today. Are we doing that? Right? Are we contrasting the narratives about self care as being self centered? If you're not good, the world is not going to be good. If you are not good, the world is not going to be good. And I'm not talking about world big W. I'm talking about world small w. Like your world is not going to be good. If your world is not good, how are you going to be good for anybody else if you're not being good for you? How is that possible? It's not. We can't. Pleasure is a disruption. However, you define pleasure, there is nothing wrong with pleasure. Pleasure is something that is accessible to all people. If it's a puzzle, you know what I did? And this, if nobody asks, you know how we do. Oh, baby, I am situating joy as a strategy. I am not playing around. Thank you so much, Maria. I appreciate you. I am situating joy as a strategy. You know what I did? It's going to sound childish, and I don't care. Y'all see, I got my comfy clothes on. I got my Palo Santo burning behind me. I have made me some tea, some raspberry tea. All of these things are bringing me joy. The smell of Palo Santo brings me joy. It centers me. My tea centers me. Having these good conversations center me. Putting on a red lip, shout out to the lip bar, centers me. It brings me joy. And I went and bought a coloring book just to navigate the space. I know I was like, you know what? I haven't taken the time to color in a long. I want the big box of crayons. I'm going to get me one of these adult coloring books, and I am going to color. That's what I'm going to do. Joy. I've been learning the line dances. Joy. I, journaling. Come on now. We need joy. Joy is a human right. Like it is a fundamental right. It belongs to you. But we have been trained, we've been socialized, and we have been conditioned to hand our joy over to somebody else or to make it an external thing or to hold people responsible for joy. Nobody is responsible for your joy, your happiness, and your pleasure but you. That's yours. It belongs to you. The only way that you can be divorced from it is if you allow that to happen. We can't, we have to really ask ourselves the right questions right now. Why am I so distant from my own joy? Why am I questioning whether or not I am worthy of joy? How am I situating joy in my life as a strategy and a tactic to handle what is going on around me? If you at work, right, and somebody's coming after you at work and they're trying to sully your name and all the things, right? What do? What's your strategy? Do you internalize it and you believe like everything that these people are saying about you, or do you stand 10 toes down about yourself and you smile and you be like, you know what? It sounds like that's your personal problem, and you need to figure that out while you are navigating all the policies, the practices, and the procedures of the organization. Make sure you CYA, but don't let people make you miserable. What they say, misery loves company. Don't let the people misery rub off on you. We're surrounded by information overload. I absolutely agree. Turn the television off. Is that a tactic and a strategy that you can use? It's the tactic and the strategy I use. I have to turn it off. I am a person, I will listen to, I'm a John Coltrane kind of girl. I'm a Charlie Mingus kind of girl. I'm a Miles Davis, Art Blakey kind of girl. I'm the kind of girl that loves jazz, especially when my mind is overloaded. I just need to listen to the music. I don't need the words. I don't want all them words. I just need to sit and allow myself the space to think. What is it that you can do to give yourself the space to sit and think? What can you do to give yourself the space to recalibrate? That is a strategy. If you are running on fumes, if you are constantly moving and you never take the time to rest, to take the time to reflect, it's going to be very hard for you to be creative and strategic and innovative in your thinking. And that is why we're experiencing this shock and awe right now. Because you're always on your toes. You are bracing for what is next. That being in that constant state of anxiety, that influx, that's not good for your nervous system, and it's most definitely not good for you being able to think your way through a situation. You can't think your way through a situation when everything is just coming at you at the same time. You can't think. That's the point. You don't know to go left, you don't know to go right, you don't go up, you don't know if it's down. You have no idea of how to disrupt the noise. You have no clue. So that's the conversation tonight, right? So the question I want to ask us, in about the 9 minutes we have left, is why is joy political? That's the question. Why is joy political? Joy is political because it provides us the foundation to understand power dynamics, especially in the American context, right? Joy is reserved for a certain class of people, for a certain racialized group of people, for a certain sexual orientation, for a certain religion. Is joy is exclusionary. That's the narrative of it, right? Only these folks can participate in without, right, being scrutinized for publicly participating in acts of joy. Sometimes it seems that joy is only for okay for certain people. I agree. I agree. Because when others, whether we are celebrating Christmas from Christmas Eve till the day after Christmas, whether it is us participating in a parade that celebrates and commemorates our fallen civil rights leaders, whether it is going to a juke joint and just to pop your fingers and to have a good time and listen to music, whether it is engaging in, with someone, whatever it is, right? When certain people participate in those kinds of acts publicly, they're met with scrutiny if they don't meet the standardized norm. right? I mean, it just is what it is. Look at what happened with Vice President Harris. The other question I want us to be thinking about is like how do you recognize the trap of exhaustion? How do you recognize it? Do you recognize it? Do you recognize the exhaustion trap? And what does that mean to you? Are you feeling like you got to show up for everybody all the time? Can we? Can we what? Can we recognize the exhaustion trap, or can we participate in joy? Which one? Which question are you asking me? Yes, can we participate in joy? Recognize the trap. I think we can. I think it's when you really sit and interrogate, like, first of all, you're gonna have to do an audit of your life. Let's just be 100. It is going to require a real audit. I mean, like you're gonna have to be like, this is what I'm doing day in and day out. How am I auditing myself? What does that look like? I'm better now, but I used to be at a point where I recognized exhaustion but ignored it. So you recognize it, but you continue to do the daily hustle, the daily struggle. Why? Is it because we have been taught that, the grind is real, grind culture, that there can be no progress without struggle, that pain is gain? Is that why? I put me in a horrible space mentally, not mindfulness a priority. Absolutely. You centered yourself. And there are people that are going to question why you are centering joy the way that you are. There are going to be people that are going to question, why are you centering mindfulness? There is a whole conversation right now between generations about the importance of rest, the importance of mental health. Mental hygiene is real. I would be very interested, and this is now the sociologist in me. I would be very interested in seeing what a longitudinal study of the last, what is this, 2016? I would be very interested in seeing a longitudinal study on the impacts of the changes in administration, policies, the attacks on marginalized, underserved groups, and how that has had an impact on people's mental health. I would be very interested in seeing what self-unaliving rates look like. I'm saying that for TikTok, y'all, because, they act crazy over there. We're taught to be strong. Strong most always means no rest. Why? And I agree. Why do, it's particularly for women. Let me talk to the sisters. And shameless plug, on March 29th, I am hosting a online summit called Joy is a Strategy. And so there will be 7 speakers that are going to talk about their particular experiences with joy and how they are now situating joy as a political tactic and strategy in their lives. And so March 29th, mark your calendars. I will send out more information about this online. It's online. So get in your comfy clothes, get your tea, whatever it is, get your socks. I found these awesome socks. This is so ADHD of me. I found these awesome socks they are like scent socks, like they have like lavender in them. So get your comfy clothes, get comfortable, get your tea, get the things that bring you joy. If it's your favorite pillow, if it's your favorite stuffed animal, have those things around you. If it's your favorite incense, and join us on March 29th for the online experience. But we do have to unlearn. Like, that was my moment. We have to unlearn being in this constant state of movement. Just because you're moving constantly doesn't mean that you're being progressive. That doesn't mean that you're being successful. That doesn't mean that you're hitting markers. That just means that you're in a constant state of motion. Being in a constant state of motion is not good. It's not healthy, and it is not sustainable. It is not sustainable mentally, it's not sustainable physically, emotionally, psychologically. It's not sustainable being in a constant state of motion. How do you really recognize the trap of exhaustion. Third, how do you choose what feels good? How do you choose what feels good? How can you situate pleasure as a disruption and be okay with situating pleasure as a disruption? I'm not talking about you overindulging in something. I'm not talking about, you know, things, habits, behaviors, actions that are counterproductive. I'm not talking about that, right? But I'm talking about if it's you want to go in the kitchen and get yourself a bowl of Captain Crunch because you have had a long 40, 50, 60, 80 hour work week and you just want to sit on the couch and just eat that bowl of Captain Crunch, how do you use that kind of pleasure as a disruption for all of the craziness that is happening around you? One more, and then we're going to get off. How do we make room for creativity? How do we make room for creativity? Are you a writer? Rochelle says she's journaling. I said I went and bought a coloring book. Do you sing? Are you a singer? Do you love to sing? Do you just wait for everybody to leave the house and you just belt out your favorite songs? Hymns? Do you hum? Do you wail? Do you moan? Do you pick up the traditions of your foremothers and your forefathers before you? Do you reach back to the things that have been taught to you to help you in this space of creativity? It's important to keep positive self-talk at the top. Tell yourself, I deserve this cereal. That is so good, Maria. I deserve this Captain Crunch. I just paid $35 for this box. Right? I pay $80 for the milk. I deserve this cereal. I deserve this coloring book. I deserve this long hot shower. I deserve this new pair of socks. It doesn't have to be something like over the top. If it is a trip that you want to take for yourself, take the trip. What I am teaching now is these strategies are adoptable and adaptable. We don't have to like imbue the politics of respectability and then start policing ourselves on how we show up for ourselves. That's crazy. We're going to stop doing that. We're going to stop doing that. I deserve rest. I deserve joy. I deserve to smile. I deserve to put on Boss Lady and It Girl by the Lip Bar. I deserve to dress my lip. I deserve to put on my favorite pair of earrings, right? I deserve to go and buy these eggs and make me an omelet because I'm paid $85 for my eggs. I deserve to stand here in this kitchen and be just in awe of the fact that I have a roof over my head. I deserve to stand in the sunlight and smile. Joy is a strategy. It is a tactic. It is a way that we are able to resist and disrupt exhaustion, shock and awe, chaos and confusion. That's the conversation that we're having. And we're going to continue to have this conversation. The other thing that, before we get off tonight is I want us to really understand that joy isn't a reward. It's not a reward. It's not, oh, I've been with this man, he done bust me upside my head 45 years. Oh, I've been with this woman, she done bust me up, like, who is that? Betty Wright? After the pain, that whole, a piece of man is better than no man at all. A piece of woman is no better than no woman at all. Like, we're not centering that. I'm trying to mince my words because TikTok is crazy, y'all. And then y'all over here on LinkedIn and YouTube. So I'm being careful of the words that I choose. But I will say that joy is not a reward, right? Joy is a right. Joy is, it belongs to all of us. And we have a right to define our joy and go after our joy and center our joy the way that is most conducive for us. It doesn't sound, I mean, it's, real deep. I'm not trying to be deep. I'm trying to be practical. We need practical strategies, right? We need ways that we can not just survive the craziness. We need to find ways in community and co-creative spaces where we can still thrive. Because if we knocked off our square, we talked about that the first episode, a lot of these people knock us off our square. And now we're always trying to play defense. Where is the opportunity for you to create joy? Absolutely, this has to be collective. It has to be collective. It is extremely important for it to be collective, co-creative, collaborative. This is about community now. How are we building communities? And in those communities, how are we centering strategies and tactics? And they don't have to look like the things we've read in books. They don't have to look like what happened 10 years ago. We are in a completely different social context. History has changed. The world has changed. The way we interact with each other is constantly changing. Like, I am looking at people and talking to people really from across the country and the globe. And I am sitting in my library. How do we do that? How do we now use the technology that we have, we leverage it the best way that we can, and still be in community with each other, because humans need human connection? How do we navigate that space? And how do we use our tactics and strategies, right, to be most successful? So my final thought is, if we aren't fighting for a world where we can be joyful, what are we fighting for? I'll say it again. If we aren't fighting for a world where we can be joyful, what are we fighting for? What are we fighting for? To conspicuous consumerism? A $20,000-$30,000 Birkin bag? What are we fighting for? Pseudo integration? What are we fighting for? Policy? Agendas? Temporary reform? What are we fighting for? That's the question that we really need to be asking ourselves. So I want to thank everyone for joining me tonight. This has been a great conversation. And oh man, thank y'all for the likes on here. Thank you for hanging in, Rochelle, Marie, all the people that have joined on TikTok, the folks that are on LinkedIn. Oh Lord, I think I got some joy isn't a reward. I got some wonderful conversations. I didn't even see the comments over here on LinkedIn, y'all. So sorry. Reflection questions. How do you choose what feels good? That's a good question. How do you situate pleasure as a disruption? How do we make room for creativity? Those are the things that we are thinking about until we come back with each other next Wednesday. How do you choose what feels right or what feels good? How do you situate pleasure as a disruption? How do we make room for creativity? Joy isn't a reward. It is not something that you earn. It is something that you own. It is yours and no one can take it from you. And joy is an unapologetic right. It is a human right that we are all born with. Again, March 29th, put it on your calendars. Be prepared to be with us for the online experience. Joy is a strategy. I'm so excited about the sisters that we have, the speakers that we have lined up. It is going to be an experience. So again, thank y'all for hanging in there with us, the extra 7 minutes. We will see you all again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. for the 4th episode of Hijacking Equity. I will talk